on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to Matchday Reloaded, live here in Panenka Studios. We are back. Oh, honestly, the morning I have had so far, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You know me. I'm never late. And it's only 11. There's been stuff catastrophically going wrong. Oh, you're showing this technology is against you. The technology is against you. That is this morning. Nevertheless, we are back. We are back for Matchday Reloaded. Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1. We're discussing the game, the reaction, the fallout, the Jadon Sancho statements as well. It's probably the best place to start. Usually when it comes to Matchday Reloaded, of course, we usually just talk about the game in question. We usually just talk about, you know, what Erik ten Hag has said after the game in regards to the game, the performances, the reaction to said performances as well. But we have to start off talking about Jadon Sancho. Now, we did speak about this quite in depth yesterday, didn't we? But it's worth pointing out again because there's some more details surrounding this morning too. So let's get straight into the Sancho part of this, then we'll move on obviously to the game. Now, first of all, Jadon Sancho was not involved with the Manchester United squad yesterday. Wasn't even selected to be a part of the bench for United's 3-1 defeat against Arsenal. And many people, rightfully so, were curious, questioning why that is the case. And Erik ten Hag said after the game, when asked about Sancho, Jadon Sancho out based on performance on training. We didn't select him. You have to reach the level every day at Manchester United. That's why in this game he wasn't selected. Which for Erik ten Hag was certainly interesting because usually he's very cryptic. We say Erik ten Hag lies, or he doesn't really say all that much. So it was somewhat surprising to see him say that. Well, not long after that, Jadon Sancho himself posted a statement to social media. Now, the statement in question was a screen grab from a notes page, and it said, and I quote, "Please don't believe everything you read. I will not allow people saying things that is completely untrue. I have conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair. All I want to do is play football with a smile on my face and contribute to my team. I respect all decisions that are made by the coaching staff. I play with fantastic players and grateful to do so, which I know every week is a challenge. I will continue to fight for this badge no matter what." Now, in a bit of an update about that, Fabrizio Romano has posted also the following, saying, quote, "Ten Hag and some of his Manchester United staff have not been happy with Jadon Sancho's level of training. Tensions have been around for the past 2 to 3 weeks. Sancho thinks there is something else, and those close to him insist he is doing his best. Ten Hag believes he did his best to help him through a tough time last season and wants him to perform, otherwise he won't be selected." Now before we go to Flex's response and reaction to, let's get to this super chat. I can see it up on the screen right now. Big up to Kishan, big super chat from Kishan. Says, "We stood behind Fergie when he and Bex had a fallout. Beckham was a legend. Sancho has done nothing, and we tried to see two sides of the story. Player power is and has been the problem since Fergie left. Stand behind Ten Hag." Now let's get to what Flex had to say about this. Then we'll get some more information because again, it's kind of all over the place a little bit with this one. So first, let's see what Flex had to say about Sancho specifically, and then we'll get back to everything else that's been sort of coming out in the last few hours.
I need some time to think about it more, but my initial reaction is maybe that probably wasn't the best idea to do that out in public. Now, again, we're not privy to the conversations that are being had behind the scenes, but as soon as you out a player in public, I just think that the player's always going to get their back up. And that's not me condoning what Sancho's done, because I'm going to get onto that in a second. I'm just talking about Ten Hag's side. I just think if, he says he's picked up an injury or it was tactical, then that's all you need to say. But because he's gone into detail and said, his levels in training weren't high, etc., etc., he's put the dirty laundry out in public. But then you can say it, you can look at it the other side of it, and I totally get when people say this, is the manager's the most important person at the football club. And he's trying to set the standards, and if you're not training well, he'll say it. But I just think you can have those principles behind the scenes. You can have them principles to the players in-house, and they know that. But in public, sometimes I just think you have to be a little bit more astute. But it seems like Ten Hag, in his mind, or in his brain, is saying that I'm tired of basically standing up for him. I'm tired of lying. I don't know. That's how it feels, because Ten Hag doesn't have to say the real truth at that moment. He can just say he picked up an injury, and we're waiting to see. He picked up a knock. He was, what's the classic? Feeling unwell, you know? And I know we say it's lies and but it protects the situation. And then he can say, rip into Sancho however he needs to in private to get this sorted. And Sancho has taken exception to this. And Owen touched on this bit earlier, and I agreed with him 100%, where he said the first part of it is more of him just saying, you know, he believes that he has trained well. He believes that he has done everything to get into the squad, where the manager's saying that you haven't. So, okay, you're having a disagreement, but it's true. That second part of this statement where he's saying, I've been made a scapegoat, which for a long time, which isn't fair. Not the second part, but it's in the first paragraph, but you get what I mean. I believe there are other reasons to the matter, which I won't go into. That shows us that there's something deeper here. That shows us that something is going on between the pair of them, whether the relationship's broken down. And again, from Jadon Sancho's perspective, I get it. He's enraged. I don't know who's advised him to do that. I don't know who sat there and told him that to make this better, the thing you should do right now is type something out in your notes, screenshot it, and put it up on Twitter. I don't know who told him to do that, but I don't think that was the correct response as well. Sometimes when your gaffer says something, you know, you're the one you have to take that, and then you got to go marching into his office tomorrow morning or ring him straight away and say, what the fuck is this? You know, that's where professionals and, you know, in the adult game, that's how you should be dealing with things. I get it. But at the same time, he's probably thought, no, I'm not letting Ten Hag say that. That's not the truth. And where he says that there's other reasons which I won't go into, we have no idea what they are. I have no idea what they are. So for me to stand here and say, that's what's difficult about this, is to say, oh, Ten Hag is 100% wrong or Sancho is 100% wrong. There's probably blame on both parts here. I think what the biggest thing about this is that it just adds to the chaos at Man United. You know, you've just lost the game in that fashion at the Emirates, and then we have to deal with this, and it's not good. You know, how bad could a Sancho have been in training? If you think about it, he's been in the matchday squad, he's been coming off the bench and actually looking pretty sharp. You know, he's actually looked okay coming off the bench to the point where we were like, he should start. And Ten Hag was reluctant to start him. So clearly, he's not the flavour of the month. But what, in 1 week's preparation from Nottingham Forest at home to now, because Sancho come off the bench in that one again, didn't he? You know, in 1 week's preparation, Ten Hag seen a decline that much that he saw it fit for one of the toughest away.
Big up Flex, and obviously that's kind of a part of it, so if you haven't seen the whole thing, be sure to check it out, as is the case with everything this morning, all of the fan views, all the reactions, all that kind of stuff. I do think, having been able to think about this with a bit more time, because obviously we went live last night, reacted to it in real time, there was stuff coming out in real time about it too. Having been able to spend a few more hours sort of thinking about it, lots of people have pointed things out about Jadon Sancho, and I want to be as fair as possible when it comes to this too. But the curious thing with this is that there does appear to be a pattern, doesn't there? There appears to be a pattern of behaviour, or certainly a pattern of even the language used. I mean, I posted this on Twitter last night, and I think it's worth pointing out once again. In November of 2019, David Ornstein from The Athletic wrote an exclusive piece, and it was about Jadon Sancho's frustrations at Borussia Dortmund at the time. And it says, and I'll read it out to you. Exclusive. Jadon Sancho felt humiliated / scapegoated / unprotected by Dortmund post-Bayern loss and by Borussia Dortmund public comments. Current summer options, Barcelona, Liverpool, Man United, Real Madrid. No preference yet. Man City want to be kept informed. No Chelsea contact. Now, forget the sort of second part of that, where they're talking about where he could have ended up going and all that kind of stuff. But when I saw that, I mean, I was really taken aback by the language, because I went, we're using the term scapegoated twice. I mean, that's pretty significant that they would use that word twice several years apart, and there have been those stories about Jadon Sancho's commitment to training too. In the Euros in 2021, it was Euros 2020 because of the pandemic. Gareth Southgate was asked, why haven't you been playing Jadon Sancho? And he said he hasn't been committing himself in training. Now, I'm not the biggest Gareth Southgate fan, and I'm not sure what I take about when it comes to his wording, because he plays Harry Maguire every single time when Maguire kicked the ball for the first time yesterday at Arsenal, and that's because we had 3 centre-backs injured. So that's why he came onto the pitch. But the point being is that there is a pattern there, isn't there? There is a pattern involved in all of that. And would Jadon Sancho be aggrieved because he perceives that Erik ten Hag has his favourites? Probably. We've said the same thing as United fans sometimes. Why is he playing Antony? Or it's because they've spent so much money on Antony, or it's because he had managed him at Ajax, and it became a bit of a running joke, didn't it? When we're linked to people in the transfer market, it's so-and-so, who's he play for? How much is he worth? Has Erik ten Hag managed him in the past? So is there an element of, nepotism when it comes to Erik ten Hag players? Maybe, a little bit. Maybe that's a fair criticism. But just going back to the statement, and I mentioned this last night, and the more I look at it, to me, the less it kind of makes sense too. Because Jadon Sancho can say, I have conducted myself in training very well this week. That's his opinion, and that's for him to say. But realistically, that doesn't matter because Jadon Sancho's not the one that picks the team. Erik ten Hag's the one that picked the team. I can sit here and say, I think my performance has been excellent. I think my performance has been superb. But it's not my channel. It's I'm not the boss. Flex is the boss. So if Flex says, hey, Owen, I don't think your performance is that great, that he's the boss. So it doesn't really, in those kind of instances, and Jadon Sancho doesn't pick the team. So I didn't really sort of get that part of it. Of course, he's got his opinion. But then the second part of the statement too, where he says, I respect all decisions that are made by the coaching staff. Well, if you respect all decisions that are made by the coaching staff, then you wouldn't do a statement like this. You would, take it and move on. I think he's probably been told this by Ten Hag face to face. Maybe he didn't anticipate that Ten Hag would go out in the public and say it after the result, and maybe he feels, you're just using me as an excuse because we lost. But I don't think anyone came out of yesterday's game, and again, this is really a statement on Jadon Sancho's tenure at Manchester United. I don't think anyone finished the game yesterday at the Emirates and said we wouldn't have lost if we had Jadon Sancho playing. When you've got a player that's on that amount of money, which isn't his fault, but when you've got a player on that amount of money with that amount of expectation, certainly when we signed him, the fact that he's not in the squad, and I think unanimously the fan base would probably say, if we had Jadon Sancho today, it would have been no difference. What does that say? What does that say about your standing, and what does that say about your performances too? So he can maybe feel that he's being made a scapegoat for a defeat, but I really don't think he is, because had he been involved, it would have been no difference. It's not like, when Marcus Rashford had a somewhat similar thing against Wolves last season, and he was dropped, and Ten Hag came out and they said, why is Marcus Rashford on the bench? Disciplinary. Turns out he was late to a meeting, and he was punished because of it. Now, Marcus Rashford came on and scored the goal that ultimately won that game. Had he not been in the squad for that game, I think people would have been pointing out to saying, hey, if Marcus Rashford was playing, we would have won that game, because when he did play, we did win that game. And that could have been, he could have perceived that as being made a scapegoat. But I don't see United's poor performance, or United's, and I don't think it was a poor performance, and we'll get to that, but United's negative result really had nothing to do with Jadon Sancho yesterday, which again is an indictment on his standing at Manchester United too. And I think that whoever advised him to put out that statement last night, I could understand that he would be angry. And he would be upset that maybe Ten Hag spoke about that, or spoke like that to the media about him. But at the same time, get over it. Basically, get over it. Do people take things too far on social media? Absolutely. Did I see that yesterday? Absolutely. When Ten Hag came out and said what he said, you already saw those people start on social media about him, and that's horrible. But the best way to do your talking all the time is on the pitch and on the training ground. If you were performing on the pitch and you were performing on the training ground, Ten Hag most likely would pick you. Now, it did feel odd because Sancho, I thought, looked really sharp in pre-season. He played as a false nine throughout all of it, and he played pretty well, I thought. I've been saying throughout the first few games of the season, put him in there while we didn't have a striker. So even that did feel odd, but there's a lot of different aspects of this. there is, as I mentioned, a pattern of behaviour. And also, it's that second part of the first paragraph in the statement where he's saying that he believes there are other reasons for the matter that he won't go into. That sounds pretty serious. He doesn't, it's very cryptic, and it'll be interesting to see if he ever comes out and says what those reasons are. But the problem is when you go public and say something like that, oh, I believe there are other reasons involved in this, eventually you have to say what those reasons are. You can't just leave that carrot dangling, can you? So the reaction to it is going to be really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if Ten Hag or United say anything, what they do with Jadon Sancho. His future, you would think immediately, is uncertain. I know the window's shut, but not in every country. I don't think he's going to go to Turkey, but there's a Saudi option there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Saudi Pro League's their ears pricked up and said, "Well, what's going on with Jadon Sancho? Can we possibly do a deal here?" So I think that Ten Hag, frankly, when he saw that statement last night, I think he'd be furious. I know I would be, because a player has come out and said that what the manager's saying isn't true. He's lying. It's scapegoating me. And it's not the first time at United, unfortunately. It's more chaos. It's whether it's Paul Pogba and Jose Mourinho, whether it's someone pointed out yesterday, Ralph Rangnick and Anthony Martial was a similar thing, where Rangnick said that Martial didn't want to play, and Martial released a statement saying it's not true. And now we have Jadon Sancho and Erik ten Hag. And the problem is these things tend to fester, and there are people that are friends, there are cliques, there are factions within the dressing room, and it can become very negative very quickly. You could argue, fortunately, we've got a international break now, that we can maybe sort this out, but it's not good. It's not good at all. Let's go to the super chat said, then we'll focus back to the game. Ray Carl Brown says, here comes all the negativity now because we lost the game all the time by this club. Well, I mean, certainly this aspect's negative. I mean, I don't think you can look at it. You can't look at a back and forth between a player, certainly a player going back at a manager in public and think that that's positive. So I do kind of push back on that. I do think the performance actually was quite positive, which we'll get into shortly. Ahmad says, sell him to Saudi for a pretty penny, ? Well, we won't be able to respend it, but certainly we could be able to reinvest in January. Amanor says, Erik ten Hag gave Sancho time out last season, no respect. Well, that is certainly what Romano is saying this morning, isn't it? That Erik ten Hag feels like he sort of treated him well last season, and he doesn't think that he's sort of reciprocated, shall we say, this season as well. Nevertheless, that's the latest when it comes to Jadon Sancho. Of course, I'm sure this will bubble on, and we'll get more reaction to it today, certainly. All of the journalists will have a field day because there's nothing else to write about in the international break, of course. Once the international break comes, no club football, things tend to simmer down and settle down. And now this will be written about a lot. Siku says, when a manager goes public, a player has the right to go public also. You say that, though, but at the same time, this isn't an uncommon thing for managers to do. And you see it at other clubs. People pointed out, Pep Guardiola said quite a few things about his players. Calvin Phillips came back or whatever, and he said he was overweight, he was fat. And did Calvin Phillips come out and say, I'm not fat? I've been going to Weight Watchers and all that kind of stuff. Or Roberto De Zerbi, falling out of his players. But managers can criticize their players. It's about reaction. And Erik ten Hag also. But let's look at this too. It's not as if this is a one-off with Ten Hag and these United players. Last season, he said what he said about Marcus Rashford. Alejandro Garnacho last season with pre-season, the way that he was being pictured and portrayed as this, and maybe it was right, maybe it was accurate, but why wasn't he involved in the tour? Well, he was late to meetings, or is his head not screwed on? Bruno Fernandes came out and, said, we've told him he's got to get his head on straight and this, that, and the other. Did Alejandro Garnacho go to social media and post a statement going, what's been said about me isn't right, isn't fair, I know I'm a kid, but you can't single me out or anything like that? Sometimes in those instances, that's why I would say if I was an advisor to Jadon Sancho and he said, hey, this is bullshit, that's not true, we all know that I'm not getting picked because he's got his favourites and all this kind of stuff. My advice to him would be, if you really want to say something, sit on it. Let's wait till the morning, at the very least, and see how you feel then. And even then, there are better ways to do this than immediately after a game and immediately after the manager has said something. And you could argue social media is going after him by that point. True. Just don't go on social media because it's a toxic wasteland, realistically. But this will develop, and this will get into it. But if we're going to get into the territory of, well, he said this first, and he started it. Is that what we're doing? He started it, and it's the man. And call me old school here, but I do believe it's the manager's right to explain. If he's asked the question, I mean, ultimately, Ten Hag was asked a question, right? Ten Hag was asked a question in a press conference. Why didn't you start Jadon Sancho? And he said, based on training performance. Could Ten Hag have lied? Sure. Did he completely chastise Jadon Sancho? I mean, when you look at it again, and then when you actually watch it, it's not like he verbally, The Rock lays the smackdown on him. He just says, based on training performance, I wasn't happy with the training performance. But Ray says Sancho needs to do his talking on the pitch, plain and simple. He's failed at United. There's a reason City didn't want him back. And Caramore says Manchester United giving us everything besides good performances right now. We are truly so blessed. Let's obviously talk about the game as well, because this is what Matchday Reloaded is about, is to talk about the game too. Having slept on it as well, I spoke to Flex after the game yesterday, and I will be so bold this morning to say that after yesterday's performance, I am confident that Manchester United will be in that fight and in the mix, and I think will qualify for the top 4 this season. Now, you will say, and there will be those negative Nancys in the chat that will say, Owen, how can you say that? We lost yesterday. We're rubbish. We're going to be mid-table at best. This is the problem. You're the problem. Toxic positivity. You're rubbish. This, that, and the other. And I looked at yesterday's game, and I said, we ended the game with Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans at centre-back, right? That's a massive problem. Obviously, that's a massive problem. And that's where we are in terms of the ownership and in terms of the management of the club, obviously. But when you have a situation where you've got 3 centre-backs missing by the end of the game, your 3 best centre-backs, both of your left-backs are also missing. One of your midfield signings is also missing. Your striker that you signed this summer came on and played, 25, 30 minutes, something like that, and looked very, very promising. We have still yet to field our strongest 11 this season. And with a signing, by the way, the other signing that we've just signed wasn't available yesterday either. So when we have our strongest 11, when we have the majority of our players back, I really do think we'll be fine. I really do think. Now, you could argue about the injury side of things, is that if that continues, then there's something wrong there. And that's a point I think worth pointing out. But realistically, I think we did okay. I think second half we did okay. We were very unfortunate. And I know it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer-esque to say fine margins, but it really was fine margins too. Didn't get the rub of the green when it came to referee decisions. The offside, Ten Hag says he didn't think it was offside. I think it's kind of humorous, isn't it, that, if it was one of those automated offsides, would it have been given? I don't know. I think it's crazy that in a different league right now, that's not offside because there are different offside rules too. I mean, let's look at that as well. In different leagues, because the offside rule at the moment across Europe, there's 2 versions. There's one version, which we have, which is there's the line, and if there's anything over the line, you're offside. There's the other rule, which I believe is in, Serie A? Something like that? Whereby there's the line, and if you're ahead of the line, but you've got anything that's still touching the line, you're onside. and also, with that, there are going to be teams playing in Champions League this season that have both differing versions of the rule as well, which to me is kind of crazy. How is that going to work in the Champions League? Obviously, they'll play by the rule that they're doing, but if there'll be players that'll be like, what? That's to me is wild. And that's not to dispute that. Okay, they gave it offside. And look, we lost. We conceded 3 goals. No problem with that. And there'll be, the opposition fans. You lost. No problem. If you give it out, you've got to take it. Fine. No issue at all. I just mean to those that were reacting yesterday. Eric Ten Hag out. this guy's going to be gone by Christmas. This guy's a bold fraud. This, that, and the other. I just don't agree with that. I look at it and say, what do you expect? When you've got Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire, Leicester City centre-back pairing of the 2018-2019 season, in 2023, at the Emirates away from home, you're going to concede goals. You're going to lose that game. In addition to that, you know, the striker, Rasmus Højlund, came on. He's only played 30 minutes of football this season. When he came on, he looked promising. Amrabat would have been perfect for yesterday's game. We didn't have him available. We didn't have Martinez, Lindelof, both came off. Varane wasn't available. Both left backs aren't available. And you can say, oh, it's excuses. Well, yeah, partially, but also they're reasons. They are factual reasons. They are factual reasons why we didn't ultimately win that game yesterday. And even with all of that, we were unlucky. We were unfortunate, realistically. And, you know, and look, Yahin says, Johnny Evans was bought by Ten Hag. Who else was there to get? I mean, you could argue there might have been other people. I know people saying Sergio Ramos and all that kind of stuff. But, again, take a step back. Look at the bigger picture. I was saying this to people during the transfer window about getting the likes of Reguilon, scraping around money. And I had those people come up to me and say, oh, who do you think then? Yeah, you're going to sign De Ligt, are you? Or you're going to sign this, you're going to sign that. Look above. That's the problem. That's the issue. Is that Man United financially, fiscally, are a mess. An absolute mess of a football club. So, for me, like I said, I look at it and say that we were unfortunate. I look at it and say I think throughout the season we'll be fine. Obviously, you know, we're operating at 50% at the moment. 2 home wins, 2 away defeats. I do think that will get better, though. I really do. And maybe, you know, you can clip it and then say that I'm wrong later on. But I know it's easy and reactionary to say that we're in massive trouble. We're in huge trouble. It's really annoying that we didn't have our, you know, that we've gone, we're 4 games into the season and we're not ready. Clearly, we were operating on deadline day. We haven't played our strongest 11 yet, and that was the same as last season. We weren't able to play our strongest starting 11 for a long time. You know, we weren't able to do that, and I think, to be honest, if I was Arsenal, if I was an Arsenal fan, thank God I'm not, but if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be looking at that going, yeah, we won 3-1. It wasn't a 3-1 game, and I'd be looking at them going, we sort of scraped over a line against a bad Man United side, honestly. A bad Man United side that had a lot of players missing. And it was only when they got Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans on at centre-back that we were able to score. And ultimately they won't care because they won the game. But I think it would probably say a lot, you know, for the season ahead. But there you go. Let's get some reaction to this. Let's go to Flex's view first of the game outside the Emirates.
Probably lose by 2 goals, but not in that manner. It's really hard to dissect games like this because you're emotionally charged. And there's so many different facets as to why you lose a game like that. Some are really, really small margins within games. Some are bigger than that. Some are to do with the squad and the lack of quality in it. And in the moment, you're raging. You're thinking, how is this happening? It's the same old crap. But then you take a step back and you try and look at what happened. And it isn't the same old crap. There were a lot of positives for Manchester United today, but I just think essentially it came down to something that's always been a problem for us. It's managing the game emotionally at different points of the game. That's what we're not doing very well. I'll get to injuries and I'll get to unfortunate things that happen. But in terms of the things that we are in control of, it's managing the emotions. It's managing the emotions better. We did the same thing that we did last year, which is score early, or maybe not so much early, but score first. And then immediately after scoring, concede. That has to stop. It really, really does have to stop. You can't come to the Emirates and score first and then immediately let them back into the game. It's just not how you can win games. A positive is that we managed to calm down after that, because actually at 1-1, I probably expected a bit of an onslaught from Arsenal to keep coming at us, but that didn't really arrive. I felt we were quite comfortable, and we did well in midfield. And actually, you know, Christian Eriksen, I thought was one of the pick of the bunches. I thought we did relatively well. Did Arsenal have some chances? Yes, of course they did. Saka should have scored. You know, Martinelli keeps going at Wan-Bissaka, but sometimes you have to respect the opposition. I think Wan-Bissaka did a good job. Maybe he couldn't go forward offensively because that's what Martinelli does. He keeps his fullbacks pinned back. But he kept winning corners after corners after corner. But what do you expect Wan-Bissaka to do? Not real any problems there. Saka was huffing and puffing a bit, but I think Dalot mostly done an okay job on him. And it was just a game of moments. Again, at 1-1, you come through a long, tough period in the second half where Arsenal were on top and Saka has the main chance. But other than that, they wasn't really threatening. They had the ball, they kept coming, and I understand that. But in terms of guilt as chances, nice one, bro. In terms of guilt as chances, it wasn't really there. And then we come out of that period, especially after the penalty incident as well, which definitely wasn't a penalty. It was good to see that was overturned from Kai Havertz because it wasn't a penalty. And then that gave us the belief after that to go and create some moments. And you can see on the counter-attack, Rashford against Ben White was causing problems. Rasmus Højlund, when he came on, a massive positive for him, doing things that Martial cannot do. Physical, gave it to Gabriel. Yes, Gabriel's a little bit rusty, he hasn't been starting, but you can tell what Rasmus Højlund's on. He wanted to fight with him, he wanted to wrestle, he wanted to be a focal point up front. Nearly scored as well when Rashford goes past Ben White and cuts it back to Rasmus Højlund on a different day. It could have been a goal. But again, we make the chance for Garnacho, and you're thinking it's 2-1, it's elation, and then the goal gets disallowed for offside. And that's a big problem because, again, we didn't manage it emotively. Going from the elation of thinking you scored to then saying, right, there's 8 minutes left, etc., make sure you don't lose. We didn't manage that well. And, of course, the biggest reasons, which I'm not saying we lost specifically because of these two players, but the difference in qualities off the bench. Arsenal today were able to bring on Fabio Vieira and Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus is a fantastic player, we know that, but he's coming back into it. And we were forced to bring on Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans hasn't played for Manchester United since 2015. Now, I questioned why we brought him in. Obviously, we needed bodies, but you never expected him to have to play today. You never expected for Harry Maguire to have to play. And when you lose Martinez to injury, that's unfortunate. When you lose Victor Lindelof with another injury, that's unfortunate. We already didn't have Varane. We already didn't have Shaw. There's no Scott McTominay. There was very, very limited options on the bench from the start. You're never going to bring on...
Big up Flex as always. And now we've got Chris here says, nah, Owen, you're giving United too much credit here. I don't think we're in trouble, but let's not pretend like we deserve to win. Would have been nice, but not deserved. Well, I didn't say we deserved to win. And I think that had that Garnacho goal counted, we'd have come out of it and said, well, we're a little bit fortunate maybe. We'd have been fortunate to do that because Arsenal did have their chances. Let's not act like they didn't. My point is, and this was the point that I was making last night, and I do think that people, certainly speaking to people on Matchday Reloaded, they would obviously, Matchday Reloaded, full-time view, obviously there were negatives, and there are negatives coming out of the game. It's not to say that everything's hunky-dory, we played absolutely brilliantly, we were so unlucky, we were robbed, all that kind of stuff. It's more just to say that coming out of that result, and this is not what it's been like in any of the games this season, coming out of it where either we've won or we've lost, the reaction's kind of been, I don't know about that. I worry for us this season. Where's the goals going to come from? The midfield looks so open. This, that, and the other. For the first time yesterday, I came out of it going, that's, I've gutted we lost, gutted in the manner we lost. But I do think there are positives, and I do see that we're decimated by injuries at the moment. We just absolutely are decimated by injuries. I stress it again, we haven't played our strongest 11 this season, and we haven't played them. And two, we haven't played them for a long period of time. Had we had our strongest 11 out yesterday, I think it would have been a different game. I really, really do. And Andre Onana yesterday, I thought was absolutely brilliant. I mean, there was a crazy stat at half-time with Andre Onana that he completed more successful passes in one half of football than David De Gea had done throughout the entirety of his Manchester United career, bar 4 games. David De Gea was at Manchester United for over a decade, and Andre Onana completed more successful passes in one half than he did apart from 4 games. It's an unbelievable stat. And I thought his distribution yesterday was excellent. So much so, and again, this is a credit to Onana as well, that Arsenal from the front just stopped pressing because they knew they couldn't get the ball from Onana, which, again, is really incredible when you think about it. And I thought yesterday, probably, I can't think of another time during Ten Hag's regime era, whatever, that we were insistent on it yesterday. First, like 10 minutes when we're playing out from the back and Arsenal are trying to put a bit of pressure on and the atmosphere's up and it's loud and those sort of opening sort of 10 minutes that you have to just kind of get through in any away game in the Premier League, particularly when you go to those big grounds against those top teams like Arsenal, like City, like Liverpool. I was, in the past you would say don't play out from the back, just go forward, go forward, go forward. And United didn't. They played out and they managed to, successfully play it out. Now the problem became is that once it got out of defence, the midfield was non-existent again, and the sort of going forward, it was non-existent for a while. And eventually, once we actually managed to settle a little bit, Christian Eriksen, who I thought again did very well yesterday, passed it to Rashford, and Rashford does a brilliant goal. So even that, I think there's positives with that, and. I thought Onana played very, very well. Obviously, now I can see the people in the chat are going, yeah, what's the main function of the goalkeeper? We're going back into this again. we go back into this again of, last season it was De Gea, but the main function is saving shots. And now we're going into, but he's not saving shots. Onana did make saves yesterday as well. You can't deny that. Should he have maybe done a bit better for, say, the Declan Rice one? I think so. I'm of the mindset of if you get your hand to it, you should probably save it. There's a deflection, but you should probably save it. The goalposts, pun intended, I suppose, are always going to be shifted around him because there are also going to be those people that will still to this day say that David De Gea was hardly done by. And again, the manner of which De Gea's exit, I think, was a mess, frankly. But I've also said, move on. Like, move on. Like, if you dwell in the past of De Gea would have saved that, or De Gea this, De Gea that, it's done. Like, it's over. Move on when it comes to that, because they've gone in a different direction. They've gone in a different direction. They're playing out from the back. Andre Onana, again, I thought did very well. He offers us something different. But again, move on. Because if you dwell in that past of every goal we concede this season, whether or not David De Gea would have saved that, you will drive yourself insane. And people are already starting to do it as well. Super chats, then we'll get some more reaction, this time from KG. Where are we at? Is it Ahmad? Is that the one we're at? Ahmad says, if Garnacho's goal was allowed to stand, which it should have, we would have been looking at a completely different result, robbed and gutted. Ray says, yes, Owen, I agree with United. The game worked out, the game played worked for the 90s. They had a chalked off goal, and Rasmus looked good when he came on. I think it will be just fine. John says, the board values players over managers, and the players know this. Managers in Man United are like substitute teachers. They're always disrespected. I would have agreed with you in the past, but we haven't seen that over the last 12 months. In the past, I think the board would have sided with Cristiano Ronaldo over a manager, or they would have sided with any player over a manager. But we've seen Erik ten Hag, be backed over Ronaldo, over David De Gea. We mentioned that because that situation changed. I think had Ten Hag got his way with, say, like Maguire in the summer, Maguire would have left if United weren't penny pinching. So I don't have any concern that this Sancho situation is going to throw Ten Hag under the bus, in all honesty. Siku says, has any manager utilised Sancho's strength at United? No. Well, this is the thing, though, with Sancho, and I mentioned this earlier on. You can argue, you can come up with these reasons as to why it maybe hasn't worked out, but also you do have to show something, and it hasn't worked out. The biggest indictment for me of Jadon Sancho's Man United career is that prior to the comments coming out by Ten Hag yesterday about him, were many people looking at that game saying, we tell you what, we really needed Jadon Sancho in that game. If we had Sancho, it would have been a massive difference. I don't think anyone was talking about that. There were some grumblings of, why wasn't Sancho in the squad? What's going on with Sancho? But it wasn't like a case of, we really, really, really needed him yesterday. It would have been a massive difference. Because he's not been that player for us, unfortunately. He hasn't. And this was meant to be his sort of season where it's like, it's make or break now. Some people have reached the end of their tether anyway with you. But this is meant to be your season. And, it's completely, blowing up, isn't it? Michael says, agree, Owen. The Irish spelling. There are definitely a lot of positives out of yesterday's game. I felt we actually looked more dangerous when Højlund came on. Appreciate the super chat from Michael. Let's go to some more reaction. Let's go to KG. Here's what KG had to say.
My thing is, I hate this team. I hate Arsenal bad. But what I saw from our boys today, I saw a team that's fighting. It was one of them fine marching ones. Like, unfortunately, the mentality at the end was not enough. But then the mentality monsters were not present. You know what I mean? When you talk about the people that you need, especially at the back in games like that, you can't afford. Remember, I was saying to you it during the game, I said it has to be eights and nines really across the pitch. And we started losing people, dropping like flies. And you can see Haley mentioned something about how it's the mentality. So it's not like it's on. It's not like it's on Maguire and Johnny Evans, but it's the fact of like obviously when these guys come on, it sends a different message to the players. Like the Arsenal, you look at Arsenal, the kids were laughing when these guys are coming on the pitch. So they're getting confidence. You said there was a moment where they started to respect Onana and they weren't trying to, they was respecting Onana and they wasn't trying to get to him, if that makes sense. You know, giving him, because they respected, you know what, you don't know how to play out. We're not going to catch you guys like this. We're not going to catch you sleeping, so we're going to leave you. As soon as the thing changed, the strikers are feeling that they're doing things that they weren't doing before. And those are the little things. You lost 2 centre-backs today. We couldn't afford, in a game like this, you can't afford to lose it. But then what's worst about that situation today is this is when you do look at the ownership and say, well, in 2023, because I know people say, as soon as we lose, we try to blame the Glazers. I'm just saying, a team that's supposed to be going forward, a team like Man United, having Maguire and Evans at the back at the end of it, in this era, is insane. Evans has played under Ferguson. And then Evans played under Ferguson and Maguire has been part of what's been bad at this club. And we tried to force him out. We've done everything to force him out and he's still there. He's lost his captaincy. And this is not on them. I'm talking about you need to get through these moments and get through, like, you need the mentality. And we saw it. You saw it from Leacher. These other players, there's just work harder. They're just better. They're just better in terms of you feel like you're going to get through it. You saw me, I was a nervous wreck when these guys came on because I know, the same way you say you know these men, I know these guys, I know them, you know, and it's like I know it's hard for me to have faith, but I just try to back Maguire as a player. But I'm saying that partnership cannot be what's going forward. They're the slowest. That's poison, bro. They're slow. And then they're slow and they can't command. So what we doing? When you got your hands up at the end of the game, be there. You got to be in front of it. That team fought today, and it's just a shame. Again, if there's any positives, Rasmus Højlund, solid. There's like cool little moments, you know what I mean? When you get Casemiro shaking them up, you got the Garnacho off the bench. Like, this is a game we could have won 2-1.
It was 5 mark. That's what I mean. This was
Big up flexing KG. I saw this in the chat, and I mean, this is a wild statement. Bartholomew says, Onana has conceded a lot more goals this season than De Gea did at the same points. De Gea won keeper of the season. I like Onana, but the disrespect is crazy. Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to do how many goals had David De Gea conceded at this point last season in comparison? Like, one season is not like the next, okay? And you want to be pedantic about that, but that's what it kind of feels like. Is we could have said after the second game of the season, Andre Onana's conceded way less goals than David De Gea, because at that point, last season after the first 2 games, he conceded 6 goals, and by the second game, we conceded what? How many was it? 2? Are we going to do that by this amount of point per game or whatever? Come on, guys. That we are better than that. we are better than that when it comes to it too. And we also did say when it comes to this too, is that when we signed Andre Onana, that we might concede more goals because of that. But that's the risk that Erik ten Hag is willing to take. He's saying that it's more important for me to have a better build-up play from the back and risk conceding goals and maybe the shot-stopping element of it dropping down than having these goalkeeper that's making all of those saves. That's the risk that Ten Hag wants to take. Those progressive goalkeepers, that tends to be, there's always an element of something's got to give when it comes to that as well. You know, and a season is not dictated after 4 games. It's after 38. And that's why I also say that I look at yesterday and I go, I think we'll be all right. I really do. And again, going back to the De Gea thing, it's just like, or the Onana thing, it's just we got to move on. Like we have to move on. We really, really do. David De Gea had a great individual season last season, no doubt about that. He won the Golden Gloves, which again is partially down to the goalkeeper. Absolutely, it's not 100% down to the goalkeeper because it's also a defensive situation. It's not goalkeeper of the season. It's Golden Gloves, which is the number of clean sheets. That people like to point to a goalkeeper about that, but it's more of a metric of sort of a defensive unit. It's both. It really is both. At the same time, David De Gea doesn't have a club at the moment, which I think speaks quite volumes too, maybe about his wage demands as well. But I mean, we've got to stop doing this. We are not learning. We are doing the same things over and over and over again, whereby we're now pointing out goalkeepers. Like Andre Onana again was one of our best players yesterday, and people are focusing on the negatives about that as well. It's just I don't get it. I don't understand it as well. Let's move on. Let's go for an opposition reaction. Flex spoke to Robbie after the game.
Last minute winners like last year, but I thought we deserved the win. I thought overall we were the better team. I was kind of surprised by United's tactics, which was kind of solely, because I was like, it was like United. The sole tactic was sit, wait for a mistake, counter, and listen, it worked for the first goal.
For the last part,
worked for the first, but you're not. I don't think you're going to go to lots of the big teams away from home and get wins doing that. You know what I mean? You've got to do a bit more. That's what I felt with United. I don't think you can just do that. I mean, Forest came here and did the same sort of tactic. All right, they got one back, but they didn't win. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of surprised me. And I almost felt it was almost like Arsenal were a little bit surprised by the tactic as well. And after a while, they were sort of thinking, we don't want to. We don't want to be scared to go full. We don't want to go full pelt on it. We make a little error because the one thing you've got quality. I mean, look how Rashford took his goal. I mean, he'd been barely in the game before that, and then bang, you're 1-0 up, right? So I was a bit surprised by that, but I think Arsenal overall deserved to win the game. You know what I mean? I think we offered more. And I mean, it was a nervy one till the end. It was a very tactical game. You know what I mean? I think the dynamics of United have changed with Onana in there, and he's very good on the ball at the back. So you're kind of like, right, do we press him? Do we press right on him?
Really know what to do,
or do we hold right back? But the one thing I would say about Onana is all of that ball playing stuff and all that is great, but you also got to be able to save goals. And he was up for, I think, a great.
I think that's harsh.
As good a goal as that was by Declan Rice.
What do you mean? He get hit off flipping Maguire and the deflection? As good a goal as it was by Declan Rice.
I think Onana's.
Come on, Robbie. He's kicked it into the flipping thing, hit off someone, and come on.
I think
that's harsh.
I think Onana got to save him.
Nah, that's harsh. Ramsdale got a flipping floppy wrist to Rashford's one, mate. Come on here. Let's not do that. Come on. Nah, Robbie. Watch it back. Well, tomorrow morning, on the show, you're going to go.
I've seen it back.
And you still think that? Nah, man.
I think Onana's got to do better.
What could he do? Declan Rice hit it and it's gone the other way. It's close proximity, man. Come on, man. I'm not letting you say that.
He's still angry at me for that Sky interview. But listen, look back at it again.
I've seen it.
He's hit a slight deflection, right, which takes it up a bit, but I think Onana should save that.
I think the whole reason, when you said you were surprised by Man United, I wasn't. For me, we're a team that's trying to build. We didn't even have a proper striker until you saw when Rasmus Højlund came on of what we can do. Midfield, Amrabat's only just come in. There's a lot of stuff we're still trying to do. So absolutely, come here and play to your strengths. And I saw it as Arsenal did sit off us a little bit because of that. That's why we brought in Onana, because before that would have been David De Gea just kicking it long or kicking it out, and you would have kept coming wave after wave. It's almost like buying a player and letting them have that presence buys you that respect, because it's almost like what Pep did when we saw it. It was like you can't really just go and press Onana, and actually we were playing out from the back quite comfortably, which I was surprised at. And I think that you're better than us, though. So that's going to happen.
My thing is the result is the same. And my thing is, I think United.
It's fine margins though, Robbie.
This is just me talking from.
That game could have been 2-1 Manchester United. You're talking
me.
very, and it's a very different story.
This is just talking to me from your to you, yeah. I'm just saying that I feel that United, if you go away from home, and that's going to be the tactic in a lot of games.
You're right. We will lose. We will.
Not even. You know what? Not even necessarily lose. I see Newcastle came here last year. They did the similar thing. I don't think. You may not necessarily lose loads of games. You may go away, you know what I mean, but you're not going to win a lot of games. And I'm looking on it and I'm saying United's problem at the moment
because we're not there yet. Look at the quality.
And I understand that. I understand.
Bigger flex than Robbie. I mean, I kind of agree and disagree with what Robbie's saying now. I understand the point he's trying to make, saying you can't do that in every game and expect to win every game. But I don't think we will away from home. That's the thing. I think, again, you have to look at the sort of team that we were selecting yesterday and the players that are still to come into the side. I do think it will be more, it will be different. It will be different. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect and we're going to win every game for the rest of the season, but I do think, you know, we're playing out from the back, getting that team more cohesive, getting the back four actually together, having Amrabat in there for big away games like that, having Casemiro and Amrabat, and also being able to start Højlund from the start. I think that those factors will make a big difference. I really do. And that's not to say we're going to win every away game and, you know, the record's going to get better. But I do think away from home, we're not going to have that season against the top half that we had last season. And you'll say, oh, but we've already played 2 top 6 sides away from home. But we're not, as Flex said, we're not there yet with the team. I cannot stress enough, we haven't been able to play our strongest starting 11 yet. We are ill prepared for the season, and that's a massive problem. But I do think we'll get a lot better. I really, really do. And I do think with Arsenal, you could probably say on the whole they deserved it yesterday. I'm not really disputing that much. But at the same time, I do think if you look at that sort of United team and how we were playing, there was I really do think a lot of positives even within all of the circumstances that were going on, honestly. And you know, I think there are positives. I really, really do. I think there are positives when it comes to that. So there you go. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And of course, now we've got the international break. We don't have any games for a week. Then we've got some really tough games, it must be said. We've got obviously Brighton at home and then Bayern Munich away in the Champions League at the Allianz Arena. It's going to be a big, tough game. Really, really tough. Finally, just before we wrap up, I'll talk about Rasmus Højlund and we'll get to Marcel's clip as well. Rasmus Højlund was really impressed by when he came on. I think that obviously a bit like our season, it's really early days, so you don't want to get too ahead of yourselves because we didn't see a whole lot of him, and there's still a lot of games to go. But at the same time, I was really impressed with what I saw. He's a lot bigger than I kind of thought. You know what I mean? You've seen all of these pictures and all that kind of stuff of him. He's a big guy. He is a unit and he is young. Was he 6'3"? He's fast. He's strong. He came on and occupied the centre-backs like Anthony Martial, I don't think can do. I mean, the physicality of roughing him up, backing up to him, playing off for Garnacho's offside goal. His pass was excellent. And, you know, it's not everything that you want in a striker because we still have yet to see his ability of scoring goals, right? And that's what he's there to do. So there is still time to go with Rasmus Højlund, and the sample size has got to be bigger. But I came out of it again. I go back again, looking at it, coming out of the game, feeling positive because I go, man, if he can start the majority of our games this season and Rashford's out on the left, and by the way, Marcus Rashford's got to realise there's a player willing to make a run, by the way, in the middle of the box. So find him. I know in the past you could argue those players haven't been there to, you know, to find that run, but now you've got to find him because he'll make the run, but he allows people to play off. You've got someone that Bruno Fernandes is actively can try and find as well during the game. Get crosses into the box because he's a big guy. And again, it's just another aspect of yesterday that I go, man, if he's playing regularly, that's going to make a massive difference for us this season too. So again, with all of that, this is why I've come out of the game, not over the top positive of we're going to win everything this season, but in comparison to not just the first 3 games this season, but also the games towards the end of last season where we would either win, lose or draw, and you would come out of it going, we were rubbish. Like, we were rubbish. And I don't see progression. I don't see a direction. And to be fair, yesterday I come out of it and I look at the extenuating circumstances of the injuries and the people not being available and a few decisions that didn't go our way. But I did see things when I go, right, okay, I can see how that can work. I can see how this can go in the right direction. I can see where this is going to go. Is it perfect? No. Will it be perfect? No. Is there still work to do? A lot of it. And people around him, like in Højlund's case, as I mentioned, you're now looking at a situation where you're saying to Rashford and you're saying to Anthony, there is a player there that will make the runs, that will help to play, that will set you up and you can play off of. But you've got to find him as well. You've got to find him, and he can't be isolated because he can be a real, I think, positive for us moving forward. I really, really do think so. So I think that was a positive too. Finally, let's get to Marcel, and then we'll wrap things up.
Side and when we put together the whole season as a whole, DJ, I think this might be one of our better performances. The first half, there's a few things to look at in terms of our build up, a lot of possession in the first third, the build up phase. Last season that little pass into Eriksen and a little hook around the corner, David De Gea and Eriksen were conceding goals against Brentford from those little things. A lot of the time today, you could see Onana playing it into Eriksen comfortably and switching it out. And there was a lot of interchanging and playing in the back line. And then when you're speaking about the back line, I think Delo played brilliantly. A lot of headed clearances, a lot of good slide tackles. So I just wanted to start on that positive phase because clearly, after you come, and I'm here talking with you after a 3-1 loss, there's huge issues, and it's that mentality, against the top six. I haven't really seen Bruno, run a game and conduct a game, how beautifully he plays, and when he's a man of the match, he's really important into the fixture. He wasn't that today, and that's maybe the biggest crux of this whole thing is that we still the pressure to play how Ten Hag wants you to play, the players can't manage to do that, and mentally, we concede goals so frivolously after even scoring them, DJ. So it's madness.
Yeah, and I kind of said it on the stream. It seems like those old kind of weaknesses are creeping in again. What did you make of Ten Hag today? He came here clearly with a game plan, but what did you make of him?
Was really good. I'm really happy with the forward line and how they're more compact. The pressing triggers were there, and we were making it difficult. We forced turnovers. We forced turnovers in the first half and in the second half. He didn't bring Sancho. I'm a bit annoyed about that. I'm also a bit annoyed no McTominay, but he's got a massive issue with all these injuries. Hopefully Amrabat can come into the fray. Very happy that he managed to negotiate Martial's minutes, and thank God no injury right now because we've got too many injuries. And Højlund comes on and you can see the qualities and the spark in that ability. So he made right decisions in that sense. The shape of the team, the way the team played, Rashford only had a few moments and then kind of went out of the game. But, him on the left now just looks right. So.
Yeah. Rashford did look more comfortable today. What did you make of his performance? He gets the goal. He gets the only goal for Manchester United today. We'll probably talk about Garnacho in a sec, but he gets the only goal today. What did you make of his overall performance?
Bro, I'm annoyed about it because, there's a couple of times where Højlund's hungry to play for this club now. You can see it, man. He's gripsing up a big man like Gabriel. He's gripsing him and bodying him. Wants to a normal throw on, instead of holding it onto your chest and playing, he wants to spin Gabriel and fight with him. This is a young baller, He's aggressive, powerful, strong. There's a couple runs that he makes through the lines on a counter-attack, and Rashford wants to hold on to the ball and dribble and shoot and miss and
should have passed it.
Pass it to the young fella that wants to die.
Big up Marcel, big up DJ. Excellent stuff with the interviews inside UVHQ yesterday, as always. And there you go, first match day reloaded of the season. Delayed starts, that will not happen next time. I tell you about that now. We'll make sure that's fixed. But welcome back to Panenka Studios. We'll be here all season, breaking down the games, getting the reactions, all that kind of stuff. The transfer window may be shut, but as you have seen today, it's always ongoing, isn't it, in the world of Manchester United, certainly. Anyway, guys, look, stay tuned. Later today, we are going to be getting a full view. It's going to be really interesting to see what the panel will say about yesterday's game and the fallout of the Jadon Sancho, Erik Ten Hag situation. Of course, if there are any more details, anything big happens today, we'll let you know too. But in the meantime, have a good one. Have a great Monday, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.